Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles, and welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamerspro Show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, and we give you guys our first perspective on things and how we see them. And today we have an interesting episode for you guys. You definitely want to stick around for it, so make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Now, I'm sure all of you know that Draymond Green is one of the most boastful trash talkers in NBA history. I certainly think that he is probably the biggest trash talker that we have going in the NBA today. Right? I can't really think of any other player that talks as much. Of course, you have John Morant, but he's new. I've heard stories of Devin Booker being a trash talker. I've heard of stories of Chris Paul being a trash talker, but I don't think anyone talks as much trash as Draymond Green. And he has the jewelry to back it up because he's a four-time NBA champion, right? And he's also been a part of the most recent dynasty in the NBA with the Golden State Warriors, right? They won 4 championships and they've been to multiple finals. I think they've been to what, 7? If I'm not mistaken, 7 NBA Finals appearances. So the guy has the jewelry, to back it up. And this time was no different because last night he went on Twitter and made some comments that I'm sure is going to spark a debate amongst NBA fans nationwide and even globally, right? Because the NBA is a global sport and people follow the sport all over the world, right? But before we get into his comments, this video is brought to you by our sponsor, Aura, who's also the official sponsor of the Minnesota Timberwolves. Do you know what the fastest growing crime in America is today? It's identity theft. Imagine trying to log into your email only to see that your password has been changed. Then you start getting weird notifications from your bank and credit cards only to find out that all of your personal and sensitive information has been totally compromised. If you think it can happen to you and your family, just know that in 2020, over 49 million Americans were victims to identity theft, costing them a combined $56 billion. That is why we are excited to partner with Aura, who's the sponsor of this video. Aura is the #1 identity theft and financial fraud protection. Aura monitors the dark web and alerts you if any of your passwords and accounts have been breached. And funny enough, after using Aura, I discovered some of my credentials were floating around in the dark web, and the app showed me exactly when and where the breach happened. In addition, Aura allows you to set spending alerts and they'll notify you of any suspicious transactions. Aura is 4 times faster than any of its competitors in alerting you if someone is trying to open a credit card or obtain a loan using your name. And remember this, every 14 seconds someone becomes a victim of identity fraud. Don't let it happen to you. Now click the link in the description and try Aura for free for 2 weeks and see if any of you or your family's personal information has been compromised. Start your free trial at aura.com/dreamerspro. And when you try Aura, by using the link in the description below, also know that you're supporting this channel. Thank you. Now, what I want to do is I want to read what Draymond Green had to say on Twitter yesterday, and then we're going to unpack it. So this is essentially what he had to say on Twitter. He said, "I'm watching the 98 Bulls versus Utah in the finals. I can't help but notice our 2017 team would have beaten these Bulls by a dub and these Jazz by 40 if they're going to play these brands of basketball. That's why it's dumb to compare eras." Here's my take on this. I still believe that the 1998 Chicago Bulls team would have beaten the brakes off of the 2017 Golden State Warriors. Now, when he said 2017, I'm not sure if he was referring to 2016, 2017, or 2017, 2018. I'm assuming he was assuming to the prior, the team before that, right? So that's where we begin. But I think Draymond is also trying to be slick here as he's saying that. In 2017, most of the guys on that Golden State Warriors team, I believe, were in their late 20s, early 30s. In 1998, that Chicago Bulls team was pretty long in the tooth. I mean, Jordan was 35 years old. 35. It wasn't like as if Michael Jordan was 28 years old or 30 years old. So he's not talking about playing Jordan in his late 20s or early 30s. It's important to note that the age difference. But if I had to pick who would win that series, I'd pick the Bulls in probably 5 or 6 games. That's what I believe. And I'm going to tell you exactly why I believe that. Now, number one, first things first, the Bulls were the better defensive team. Hence, they had the higher defensive rating. You guys know that defensive ratings are very good at telling you just how good a team is actually, right? Because if you look at a team that's rated number one, then, and you look at a team that's rated number one now, you need to go look at the difference. For instance, the amount of points that they hold opponents to. Give you guys an example. In this particular case, the Chicago Bulls were much better in terms of being a defensive team than that 2017 Golden State Warriors team. That 2017 team was giving up about 104 points per game, whereas that 1998 Chicago Bulls team was giving up about 99.8 points per game, around 100, so 4 points less per game, which brings me to the next reason I would pick the Bulls. That Chicago Bulls team, especially their starting five, was a compilation of two-way players. They were just a bunch of two-way players, right? The Bulls had players that I believe they will be able to match up well with when we're talking about the Golden State Warriors. They had two-way players like Ron Harper. You had, of course, Michael Jordan. You had Scottie Pippen. These were two-way players that can give you something, a little bit of something on offense and something on defense, right? And then, of course, you have Dennis Rodman, who could guard anybody. It seems like that's either, I would say, a 4 or a 5, right? Then you have him. The Bulls, if they were to face the Golden State Warriors, that 2017 team, the Bulls would have 3 of the 4 best defensive players in that series. They would have 3 of the 4. Right, because Draymond Green is not, when he said he's the greatest defender of all time, that's just cuckoo talk, right? That's ludicrous. The Bulls would have Michael Jordan, who I believe is one of the top defensive players of all time. Of course, you have Scottie Pippen, who's a better defender than Draymond Green. Of course, you have Dennis Rodman, and then you have Draymond Green. So I think the Bulls are going to have the edge on the defensive side of the floor, and defense matters, right? Defense matters. Hence, what you saw with the Boston Celtics when they played against the Brooklyn Nets in round 1 of these recent playoffs. They were playing against 2 very efficient perimeter players, and Kyrie Irving. Both of those guys have been part of the 50-40-90 club, and they stifled them, especially Kevin Durant. I think he only had one game in that series where he scored above 40 points, right? So they would totally stifle them. I also believe that the Bulls will win that series because I believe that the Bulls would match up beautifully with the Golden State Warriors, right? And the Bulls will be able to do a lot of cross-matching. You heard, you heard Chris Broussard and Nick Wright get into an argument. They got into an argument a few months ago where Chris Broussard would put Jordan on this, and he's like, no, that's not how it works. That's not how it works. It's like, bro, yes, things can work like that. I've seen the Lakers, when they were playing Kobe with Ron Artest and Pau Gasol, Lamar Odom, and these cats, I saw them when they were playing against the Oklahoma City Thunder, and they put Kobe Bryant on Russell Westbrook. That's what they did, and he essentially forced him into being a jump shooter, right, in that series, right? So you can have cross matchups, and I think that's exactly what the Bulls would do. I see a scenario in which, if these two teams were to match up, I see Phil Jackson putting Jordan on Curry. Right? I think he would put him on Curry. He's a bigger guard. He has the quickness to stay with Curry. He can contest all of his shots, and he has enough quickness and lateral quickness with his feet to stay in front of Curry when he gets into his dribbling positions. But as y'all know, Stephen Curry is usually coming off of screens, pin downs, and all of that stuff when he scores. And I think Jordan will be chasing him all over the place. And I think Jordan has enough strength and quickness to fight through those screens, get over those screens, and get in front of Stephen Curry. And then now, you're hoping that Stephen Curry can break Jordan down on a one-on-one, offense versus defense to be able to score over Jordan consistently in a series. I don't see that happening. I just definitely don't see that happening. I've seen Curry struggle in final series against some defenders, and now you're talking about Michael Jordan. So I'll put Jordan on Curry. I'll put Ron Harper on Klay Thompson. Right, Curry and Klay Thompson play a very similar brand of basketball in terms of how they generate their points. Right, it's a lot of movement, screens, and all of these different things. It's one of the reasons why you see Klay Thompson be able to score so many points in a game. The reason why Klay Thompson could score so many points is for 2 reasons. Number one, the nature of his game. He's a catch and shooter. He's a very good catch and shooter. Obviously, he has a very, very quick release, which allows him to get his shot off very quickly. That's number 2. Number 3, Klay Thompson is one of these guys that does not really beat defenders off the dribble, right? So for him to be most effective is when he's playing with spacing, which means that other guys on the floor need to be hitting shots. And if you put him in a scenario which other guys are not getting clean shots, you're going to put a lot of the pressure on him for him to beat you, and usually off the dribble. And I think the Bulls have enough quickness on the perimeter to chase him off that 3-point line and force him to put the ball on the floor and make some shots, contested shots, right? I would force him to his offhand every single time. I have not seen highlights of Klay Thompson being very adept at going to his left hand and shooting. So that's what I would do. right? I would force him to be an ISO player and get him off that three-point line while I have Jordan and these guys chasing Stephen Curry, around the perimeter. Then I would put Scottie Pippen on Kevin Durant, and I think he'll be able to stay with Kevin Durant. Now, if we're talking about Scottie Pippen when he was injured in the finals, is that what Draymond Green was referring to? Playing against a hobble Scottie Pippen with back issues? Is that what you're referring to? Is that the Chicago Bulls you're referring to? You're talking about a Scottie Pippen in his prime, motivated and ready to go against anybody and defend anybody, right? I saw Phil Jackson put Scottie Pippen on Magic Johnson, right, and give him some issues. So I would definitely put Scottie Pippen on him, and then I would reverse it. I would reverse it and then ask the question, who's guarding these guys on the ball? Who's guarding Jordan? Who's guarding Jordan? And I don't see any scenario in which they will be able to stop Jordan at all. Jordan would live at the rim. He would live at the rim, and I think Dennis Rodman would get all the rebounds. I think Dennis Rodman would bully Draymond Green out there. I think Draymond Green would not be a great rebounding forward with Dennis Rodman on the floor. Dennis Rodman is the best rebounder, arguably, in NBA history. Right, in NBA history. And if you told him all you got to do is just rebound the ball, I think it's going to limit the possessions that the Golden State Warriors are going to have. And, by the way, he's also going to be able to get them some offensive rebounds, which will also contribute to more opportunities for the Chicago Bulls to score. I think the Chicago Bulls would give the Golden State Warriors a lot of issues on the defensive side of the floor, especially if they run a full court press when they're picking them up, picking them up, full court pressuring them from the minute they inbound the ball. I think it would be very, very difficult for those guys to score at them at a very efficient rate. This is just my personal opinion, right? And of course, you would have the most clutch player in that series of Michael Jordan, and I think Jordan would have his way with him. I also think the Chicago Bulls would win the coaching matchup, right, with Phil Jackson. So who's going to coach the Spurs? That means Steve Kerr is going to be on the Bulls bench. So who's going to coach the Spurs? So to me, listen, I would pick the Chicago Bulls. I think it's a no-brainer. But obviously, some people are going to have different views. So the question really is to the audience, who do you think wins this matchup? The Chicago Bulls, 1998, or the 2017 Golden State Warriors? Whatever you guys think, leave your thoughts in the comment section, and we catch y'all on the next episode.